You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we're back at you again with another author, but not just any author. I got to tell you, from the beginning of this podcast, never thought I'd be speaking with more than one or two people who gave a TEDx talk. Well, this guest right here, she's the lucky seventh guest on this show who has given a TEDx talk. And not only that, she is the author of the book Self-Intelligence. She is a coach, a speaker, and a specialist on brain plasticity. And for those who remember that wonderful episode with Charlie Harari, the book Unlocking Greatness, you might want to go back and check out that episode too, because this episode is going to be freaking phenomenal, because we got a wonderful lady who's all about self-intelligence, unlocking your greatness, and having a grand old fun time. And you're probably wondering who I got today. It is the one, the only Jane Ransom. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm great, Dom. Thank you. You know what, though? Actually, I think I have a cousin with the same name, and I think there are other Jane Ransoms out there. So just to let you know, I might not be the one and only.
Well, you're the one and only in my life right now, and that's the one that matters, especially the listeners, too. That's right. If you got a relative named Jane Ransom, it's her. Just don't ask for money, though.
No money.
Like, you got a TEDx talk.
I know, and I would like another one. I would love to do a TEDx talk on self-intelligence. I'll put that out to the world. But, you know, Dom, we had so much fun already. That's what your listeners don't know. Like, we were on the phone before you pushed record, and we could not stop laughing, right? And
oh, yeah.
I know. And, you know, I was wondering, I thought maybe that's a sign that we should talk about playfulness and the new neuroscience on play and on how important it is for adults, grown-ups, assuming you and I might be about that, grown up by now, how important it is for our relationships, for our well-being all around. Does that sound good?
Sounds so good. Got to spell it with 5 O's.
Good. Okay. It turns out that playing together is really an essential part of good relationships, and playing as children is an essential part of brain health. In fact, and this is real science, I'm not making this up, but it's going to sound made up at first, when a child is not allowed to play and to freely play, and by that I mean, you know, sort of rough and tumble, not too many rules, not too much adult supervision, just kind of go out there and play with friends. We're not talking about in front of the computer, but with friends. If a child is not allowed to do that when they're young, that child is more likely to grow up and become a certain kind of person. And do you know what kind of person that would be?
This podcast host right here? A playful one?
No, if they weren't allowed, like if a child is not allowed to play when they're little, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's true, they are more likely as an adult to become a murderer. Isn't that wild?
Okay.
Yeah.
Forget what I said earlier. Not me. This podcast is not a murder. Nope. Take that back.
Exactly. And you're very playful, so obviously you're good.
Good.
maybe the world's leading play researcher, a scientist named Stuart Brown, years ago was investigating the shooting at, I think it was the University of Texas campus. A guy got up in a tower and shot a bunch of people. And so Stuart Brown was a young psychologist, and he was hired to figure out why, like what had happened. And he ended up doing a whole research on murderers in general, and he ended up going into jail cells and taking these, long, thorough life histories, finding out everything about them. And he found out a couple of things that most of these murderers had in common. One of them did not surprise him. He found out that most of them had, unhappy, abusive childhoods. But obviously many people have unhappy, abusive childhoods and don't turn out to be murderers. But that he wasn't surprised by that commonality. But the other factor that these murderers tended to have in common completely surprised him. And that was that they had not been allowed to play as children. And after that, Brown became an expert on the science of play, and he's done over 6,000 play interviews with people, in other words, interviewing them about the role of play throughout their entire life from childhood onward. And meanwhile, other neuroscientists have studied play, what it does in the brain, and it turns out that the instinct to play is shared by many mammals, especially the most intelligent ones, and that it's part of our most basic brain area. And then, but what it does is when we play, it develops our highest brain areas, and including our social skills. So when a kid plays with other kids, that kid learns when to stand up for himself or herself, when to back down, what to do if they confront a bully, how to be assertive but not too pushy, all of those things. And then, but here's what happens, Dom. People grow up and they forget to play, right? And
Yep.
yeah, right? So you and I got on the phone, and I don't remember what sparked it, but it was probably you.
Yep, me and my Macho Man Randy Savage voice is at it again, yep.
I love it. Oh, my gosh. So we immediately started playing on the phone, and we just started laughing. Oh, my gosh, that's so fun. And that is one of the best ways to bond with other people. I'll tell you about this, including in business. Do you think some of your listeners are maybe have their own businesses, or they work for a company and they have a professional career that they're improving on?
Oh, yes, man, plenty of professionals, especially the ladies.
Okay. Well, here's another experiment that you might appreciate hearing about. Another study. They went in and they put, in a big place of professionals gathering, and they put people in pairs, strangers who didn't know each other, and one person would be blindfolded, and the other person had a straw in their mouth that they had to keep in their mouth, okay? And then the person had to keep the straw in their mouth while they told the blindfolded person how to throw this Nerf ball around, right? So they had to give them instructions, but they couldn't really talk well. And so the whole thing was so utterly absurd that those people started cracking up, and within 3 minutes they were having the best time because they were laughing together, they were being silly. They were total strangers before that, but at the end of 3 minutes they reported feeling really quite connected. Meanwhile, in the control group, one person was throwing a Nerf ball at the directions of the other person, but there was no blindfold and no straw. So it was just, throw the ball here, ball there. No humor, no craziness. Those people didn't end up connected at all. So one of the things to remember from that absurd experiment isn't to go around, trying to blindfold your coworkers or throwing Nerf balls around the office, though that might not be a bad idea. But it's if you want to connect with other people, invite them to play with you in some way. Be playful with them. It brings out the best in all of us, and it makes everybody feel good because we get so uptight in our adult selves.
Oh, yeah, especially when it comes to gaining weight. That's when things really get tight.
Oh, let's talk about that because I've helped a lot of clients with that, and I'm very passionate about health, including physical health. What's your story? And I think I heard on one of your other podcasts that you at least did struggle with that in the past. I don't know if it's still a struggle with you, but tell me a little bit about that from your side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so basically it was a lack of self-care and focusing so much on helping others. I gained a good 50 pounds over a good 2-year period from just basically neglecting a lot of sleep and just eating a bunch and doing the working out and doing a little dirty bulking in combination with all of that. And ended up gaining 50-plus pounds over a good 2-year period, and then just waking up like, wait a second, these pants do not
they don't
feel the same way. Like, wait a second, I feel like I'm supposed to have more room in these pants, and you get in the scale, like, oh, okay, that's the reason. Yeah, but it's definitely a lot better than what it was 12 months ago.
Okay, so it sounds like you've been on, you kind of started getting turned around about 12 months ago, and you've been sort of on the road to improvement for the last year. Is that right?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Wow, well, congratulations. That's really major. I would love, and so first I have some science tips to share with anyone who would like to lose weight. But what I would first like to hear, and I know you weren't expecting me to interview you, but I want to hear what has worked for you. Like here you were off track, now you're on track. So what helped you to get on track?
This is where the ransom comes in. So basically, what got me...
Whee!
Like, yay, happy robbery, that's right.
It's my podcast now. Woo!
It's like, yeah, this is my interview. Nope, think again. All right, cool, I'm interviewing you, buddy. No, but seriously, though, what helped get me back on track was basically the whole pants thing is like getting bigger size clothes and everything and trying to fit inside of those, and then not only getting the different clothes, but actually realizing, like, hey, looking in the mirror, it's like, okay, not all of this weight gain is muscle gain, so I got to get back into my routine of actually going to the CrossFit box, or at least for the kickbox, at least 2 to 3 times a week. Because one thing is to do is I used to do a lot of CrossFit for a while, but then I just fell off the wagon because one thing about the CrossFit, it's, even though it can be very competitive, it's not really fully competitive because you're really competing against yourself, but at the same time, it's like you see everybody else's scores on the wall, and you're like, I don't want to suck this bad, so let me just keep it up. But when you do that after a while, I do have a bit of a competitive side, just a smidge of it, and it's like, okay, you got to keep this up, and then you forget to stretch and all that. Just fell off the wagon, but mostly just the exercise and making sure I get enough sleep, making sure I don't drink too much caffeine during the afternoon, because that was one thing that contributed to the weight gain, because there'd be days where I would get maybe 2 to 4 hours of sleep, and I'd run on that the whole day, and then it's like my body can't fully heal and rest and relax and restore itself. So getting more sleep, actually working out more, getting back to actually doing a little routine in the morning, a set of sit-ups, push-ups, and some squats to get myself going, drinking more water, and just really just changing some habits and actually getting myself focused on actually keeping the youth for as long as possible, because it's like, don't want to be an older gentleman with completely creaky bones if I can do something about it. So trying to stretch now as opposed to having to go through extra pain later.
No, that's good. I love that, thinking ahead. And you know what I like also about your story is you kind of had a couple of wake-up calls, including the pants, right? That was kind of your wake-up call. Because I'm sure before then, maybe you kind of knew but didn't sort of confront the issue, right?
Oh, yeah, compress the issue indeed.
Yeah, compress the issue. Very good way to put it. So I want to mention a couple of things just so people will understand that the science supports exactly what you've done. So we'll understand better why it's working and why it can work for other people. So you mentioned sleep. So it's really true. When I work with weight loss clients, actually all of my clients now, the first question I ask them is, how much sleep are you getting? Because sleep is one of the best things you can do for your brain health, for your intelligence, your cognitive ability, and your emotional health, but also for your physical health. Because when you are sleep deprived, even if you eat and exercise exactly the same, when you're sleep deprived, you will gain weight from the lack of sleep because of a couple of things. And one of that is that the body, you're not processing glucose as well when you're sleep deprived. And so more of your energy is going and getting stored into fat cells. And meanwhile, you're feeling tired because you're not processing that glucose. So you gain weight even if you're eating and exercising exactly the same. And then the other thing is that people do tend to eat more when they are sleep deprived, because when you are sleep deprived, your body produces more ghrelin, which is a hormone which increases appetite, and it produces less leptin, which is a hormone that helps you feel full, that you've had enough to eat. And so everything goes out of whack. And, I love real science. I'm a total nerd, and I love scientific research. But one of my favorite studies was actually a non-scientific study, but it was by Glamour magazine, and they had, I think, maybe 7 or 12, I'm not sure how many of their editors or employees get at least 7.5 hours of sleep a night, and just to measure their weight and took their waist measurements and so on. And very soon, all of them, without doing anything else different, had lost weight. Isn't that wonderful?
That is wonderful indeed.
Yeah. And so I love that. So the first thing to do is just to start getting enough sleep. Also, that increases your self-discipline. And I want to say something about self-discipline, because this is counterintuitive, and not everybody knows it. Did you know that one of the best things you can do to boost your willpower, to strengthen your self-discipline? Well, I'll give you a quiz. Do you think it's going to be harder and firmer on yourself, or do you think it's going to be more forgiving toward yourself?
I guess more forgiving.
Yes!
Sweet.
A+. Yay!
Sweet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll tell you about this crazy, and when I teach this to people, to clients, and also sometimes in seminars, and often, somebody will say, well, that just can't be true. I need to be harder on myself. And honestly, the science proves that no, you don't need to be harder on yourself. That's actually hurting you. The first thing you need to do is to be kinder and gentler to yourself. And scientists came up with a name for this. I'm going to say a swear word, but it's not a terrible swear word. So is it okay if there's a little swear word? Because it's part of a scientific, it's a term that scientists coined. I didn't make this up. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. It's called what the hell effect. So there's the swear word, my apology. But it's called what the hell effect.
Okay.
And the term is funny, but the science is real. There have been many studies now that show that the harder someone is on themselves after screwing up in some way, after making a mistake, whether it's overeating, whether it's over drinking, whether it's procrastinating, failing to study for an exam, whatever it is, the more that person chastises themselves, the more they feel bad about it and kind of punish themselves mentally, the more likely they are to repeat the bad behavior. And time after time, in experiment after experiment, this is shown to be true. Scientists have called it the what the hell effect, because what they hypothesize, and now it's kind of funny, they think what they hypothesize is that the subconscious is when you punish yourself, it's a very bad feeling, right? I mean, it kind of feels like, it's just the worst feeling. And so what they hypothesize is that the subconscious is, feeling really bad, and the subconscious sort of says, well, everything is lost. What the hell? I might as well go on repeating that bad behavior. Now, that's what they hypothesize, is the sort of subconscious logic going on. But what's very real and proven beyond any doubt is the effect. And what they've also found in experiments is that this is very easy to get rid of. All it takes is a conscious effort of being kind to yourself, nice to yourself. So let's say, you're maybe still trying to get even more fit, and certainly you want to keep going forward and not slide backward. But every now and then, I'm guessing maybe you eat like a little bit more than you meant to, or you have a cup of cookies when maybe you, quote, shouldn't have, unquote. Is that correct? Would that be right?
Yeah, I love snickerdoodles.
Yeah, okay, great. You love snickerdoodles. Okay, good. So here's the thing. When you eat those things you love, never shame yourself to yourself, or to anybody else, of course, but never go around feeling bad about it. What you do is you say, hey, dear self, we're all human. Everybody screws up. Sometimes it's totally okay. We're all imperfect. That's the point of being human. We're beautifully imperfect. And then the other thing about the snickerdoodles, if there's something you love, you've got to give yourself permission to eat those sometimes. One of my weight loss clients loves McDonald's fries. And so she ended up deciding she would go to McDonald's with her grandkids once a month, and she doesn't go hungry. She actually eats lunch before she goes. She doesn't have a whole meal. But she goes, and just for the pleasure of it, once a month has those fries.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go, right? Snickerdoodles, fries, whatever it is.
Call that a snickerdoodle surprise.
Yeah. And long ago, I used to be kind of chubby. And here's another common mistake that people make that they don't realize holds them back, which I was doing, was I was talking about it too much. So I would be with some friends, and I would, we would, I don't know, order chocolate sundaes or something, and I would say, I really shouldn't be doing this, and all my friends would laugh, But so I kind of made them complicit enablers of my overeating, because I would sort of talk about it, or I would talk about what I should do, and by talking about it, that sort of tricks the brain. We now know the brain actually, if I say, I should go on a diet or I should eat less, can actually trick the brain. The brain can release certain neurochemical rewards that makes me feel like I did the thing I'm talking about. And there's some weird experiments that show this effect, kind of a glitch in the brain. But finally, one day, one of my friends said to me, "You're lying. You're not doing anything about it." And it was kind of like you're trying on the pants one day and they didn't fit as well. I was so shocked that this friend spoke to me in that way. I was like, oh my gosh. And it just threw me out of my comfort zone of inaction. And here's the amazing thing. At that moment, kind of like you with the trying on the pants, at that moment I simply made a decision. Like, no more talking what I should or shouldn't do. No, no more decisions on a meal-by-meal basis. It was just, okay, this is it. I'm no longer comfortable in this, and I just, after that, it was just so easy actually for me to lose quite a bit of weight, just eating less and exercising more, because I made that decision, because I had that moment of clarity. So one of the brain glitches we now know about is that talking too much about something you should do actually can lower your motivation. So if any of your listeners can relate to that, if they've been talking about something they should do and they haven't been able to bring themselves to do it, one of the best ways to spring into action is to just stop talking about it. Allow yourself to get to that point where you're no longer comfortable with the inaction and spring into action. And, once we start taking action, everything becomes easier, right? Did you experience that? Like once you started getting on track, even though it's not always super easy, but it was easier to keep going once you got going, right?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So anyway, I love all this. You can hear I'm a total nerd. I love science, and I geek out on this stuff. So.
Oh, don't worry. We, the folks at the Going North podcast, appreciate nerds. They gave us iPhones, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good, right? And I have to say, my book, Self-Intelligence, as nerdy as I am, the actual book is very readable, and each chapter has a really good story. It has cartoons. Each chapter has cartoons. Everyone should have cartoons in their books. And it's also a really good-looking book, if I can say so, because a couple of book fairs in Europe every year, and at the one early this year, there was a lot of interest in the book among European distributors at this book fair in London. And so the publisher, and I don't understand this, but apparently European readers like to see color on the inside pages of their books. I didn't know this. I don't understand it exactly, but anyway, so the publisher put the color red as a design element throughout the inside pages of this book. If I do say so, it's a very good-looking book.
Oh, yeah. I bet it's got them invisible high heels, too, doesn't it?
Well, it's got red and cartoons.
Oh, yeah. Use that red to get ahead.
Exactly. The winning color.
That's right. I see you, book. That's right. Go ahead and strut your knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'm writing that down. Strut your knowledge. Ooh. That's nice. Strut your knowledge. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. You know, that makes me think of something else in the book, because when I was writing this book, there's so much new brain science out there on how we can actually change ourselves. You know, because scientists, once they discovered this thing called brain plasticity, which refers to the fact that the connections among all our neurons, what we know about as our thinking cells in the brain, those connections are always changing and remapping with one another. And, you know, when I was growing up, Dom, I was taught, once you're an adult, you're done, like your personality is done, your intelligence is done, everything's set for life. Sorry, kid, it's over. That's not true. It's just not true. Now, once we got neuroimaging technology that could really look inside people's brains, scientists discovered, oh my gosh, the brain is always changing. And what that means is that you and I can literally reform our own brains, by choosing better thoughts, better actions, better experiences. And the only reason that scientists did not believe this for so long, until the neuroimaging technology driven by computers came along, scientists just didn't believe this. Now we know for a fact that it's true. But the reason they didn't believe it for so very long was that most people naturally go around doing and saying and thinking the same old things, and they don't realize it, but they're rewiring their own brains every day for the same old, same old. So, there's no shame in the fact that that sometimes takes a little nudge to get us on track when we've been off track, because there's a natural tendency to stay the same called homeostasis in science. But the great news is once we get on track and we begin engaging in those better habits, those become wired into the brain as well. So everything gets easier and easier. You not only can we change, but once you kind of get on that path of change, it all just gets easier and easier, and you become more and more motivated because you feel better about yourself, right? I mean, I'm guessing, is this right, that you're feeling better about yourself now that your pant size is a little more where you want it to be?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Makes file compression a lot easier. Okay. And because you're the one who said strut your knowledge. You said that. So I'm going to give you another tip here on how to feel good. All right. Sweet.
Okay. So the book Self-Intelligence, although it's very easy to read, it's got a lot of science and the bibliography's online, but it's divided into 5 sections because there's nothing works for everybody and each person's different, and there's always a way in to get the change you want. So one of the sections is about this whole new field called Embodied Cognition.
Ooh.
Yeah. Strut your knowledge, right? And what they've found what they've found is that the brain-body loop is so interconnected. And now this makes sense because those thinking cells, those neurons, they extend throughout your body. Like, for example, how tall are you? Do you mind sharing?
Oh, 6'1".
Wow! Congratulations. That's tall. Good for you. I'm happy for you. So that means you have single cells, single neurons up to 3 feet long. Now, isn't that amazing? I don't know how a single cell even stays intact up to 3 feet long, but from the base of your spine to the tip of your big toe, you have single cells extending that entire distance. And those are neurons. Unlike all the other cells in your body, neurons have this strange shape. They're they're very stringy, right? And so you being tall have really ultra stringy neurons.
Sweet.
I know, isn't that awesome? But so here's the thing. We have neurons going throughout our entire bodies, right, to the tips of our toes, to the tips of our fingers, and they're all communicating to the brain. They're part of the brain in a sense because it goes up the spine into the brain. What this means, scientists have found, is that what we do with our bodies affects our thoughts and emotions. What we do with our thoughts and emotions also affects our bodies, our physical health. But here's great news. For example, I had a client she'd been recently divorced. She was kind of feeling bad about herself. Her husband had left her. She just was having a self-esteem thing. And what I had her do was practice walking. I had her practice strutting, to use your word. And, with her head high and her shoulders back and in this really confident pose. And by practicing that, she recovered the feeling of self-confidence. And we can use our bodies. There are many. I'll share with you one. Here, this is a real study. All these are real studies, but this is a classic one, and it always cracks me up. So the basic science is if you hold yourself, better posture, better confidence, right? Stand tall. Also, the more you smile, the happier you will be. I mean, I know we think of happiness causing smiles, but it can work in the other direction. And the more you smile, the funnier life will be. The funnier you will find life, the more amused you will be by life. And this goes to one of my favorite studies, and this is really true. Okay, I should warn you, scientists can be very wacky. Some of the things they do in experiments is just nuts. So in this experiment, they made people hold pens in their mouths. Okay? You following me?
Okay.
Okay.
More like
now,
taking a blanket, all right.
I know, right? So some of these people were forced to smile because they had to hold the pens in their teeth. All right? It forced their mouths into a smile. The other people were kept from smiling, prevented from smiling because they had to hold the pens in their lips in a way that kept them from smiling. All right. Now, what the people were told was that this experiment was testing ways for paraplegics to write with their mouths. But that was a lie, and that, scientists sometimes make up things. They say they're testing one thing when they're testing another thing. What they were really testing was the effect of smiling on the brain. Okay, so now we've got these two groups of people all holding pens in their mouths. Some are smiling and some can't smile. And they had them all read the same Far Side cartoons. Yeah. Now, not only that, and they had them with the pens in their mouths. They had them rate the funniness of the Far Side cartoons using those pens in their mouths. All right? You still I know. Okay. The experiment itself cracks me up, but they found that the subjects who were forced to smile really did find the cartoons significantly funnier than those subjects who were prevented from smiling.
I believe it. I definitely believe it.
So, then the next time you want to improve your mood, just, put a pen in your mouth, hold it in your teeth. I'm just kidding, but seriously, do strut your knowledge, as you say, hold yourself tall, smile. It actually will improve your confidence automatically.
That's right. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's why you got to keep the good curve that everybody has in order to smile, ready for action.
Yeah. I like it. I like the way you put that, too. Smile, ready for action. I'm going to have to quote you.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure it's oh, wait, I forgot. TED. I was going to say during the TED Talk, but I was like, wait a second. They can't probably be like, no, get off the stage. You're selling something. Just cut you like mid-sentence, like, no, get off the stage. It's over. Then you put it on YouTube and whatnot.
With one of those big hooks where they drag you off the stage.
Yep. Or the clown from Showtime at the Apollo.
There you go. Share with me, I dare you to share with me one of the silliest things that you've done, I don't know, in the last month.
Oh, that's easy, yeah. So on the job, I like to mess around with colleagues and customers, and I go deep into one of my random musings where I tell people I was a tree once.
Oh, what kind of tree?
I tell them I was the burning bush, and one of the potheads who smoked me was named was Moses. Yep.
Sounds believable
right.
to me.
Yep. And they all did it on 420 as well. That's like the weed smokers' holidays. Like, yep, 420, smoke a big old blunt. Yep, so in the forest of trees, I was the burning bush. I was the full kush.
Wow.
And all the potheads smoked me for my knowledge so they can see UFOs.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yep. Yep, and I woke up as a black guy because of it. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's nice. I love that. Let me ask, when you bring that out and share that your burning bush, history.
Probably like, oh God, I should never ask this guy that question. Oh God, no! What the heck is this? A tree. This is not the self-intelligence we're talking here.
Well, it's very important to be playful and silly, so this is serious stuff. But I want to know, I'm guessing when you're silly that other people kind of get permission to be silly with you. What have you experienced when you've shared this about yourself?
They usually just have a random face palm and just start busting out laughing because it's so out of the blue. Like, really? Like, I'm checking out this book here, and it's like, what the heck, a tree? What are you doing? It used to be a stand-up comedy. What the heck? I wanted to check out a book. Where'd the tree come from?
Well, books, we can't make books without trees, right? I mean, it's all interconnected. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I say well done if you, well done. They came to the library to learn, and they not only are learning, they're also laughing. So, well done.
Oh, yes, well done indeed. And speaking of books, if you were to pick a top 3 favorite books that have inspired you, what would they be?
Okay, there's so many. I love books, and I think it's so wonderful you work in a library. I love libraries. Okay, so I mentioned brain plasticity, and learning about brain plasticity and the fact that we can really change and we can literally reform our brains. That news came to me around 2007 when one of the first books for lay people came out on this discovery, because this is a revolution in neuroscience, brain plasticity. And that book is The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. It's a wonderful book. And that's for, your listeners who are really geeky and nerdy like me and who like that, a big, thick science book. It's good stuff. Another book that changed my life is by Carol Dweck. She's a Stanford psychologist, and that book is called Mindset. That came out around the same year, actually. The New Psychology of Success. I'd love to share a little bit about her research. I have a chapter on it in my book as well, because I use this with clients all the time. And not everyone's familiar yet with Dweck's work. Do you know what
really?
it is? Yeah.
That book has sold at least over 1 million copies. I have a copy of that book. I love that book.
Oh, yes. Oh, you made me happy. Thank you. Yay. Okay. So can I share with your listeners then kind of the premise of the book, her big finding?
Oh, sharing is caring.
Okay. Because this book really has changed my life. So what she found, as you know, is that when we encourage people, when we tell people of any age, whether it's 4 years old or whether it's a grown-up professional, if we tell someone that they're smart or they're talented, we actually undermine their authentic confidence. We instill in them what she calls a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. And this is very counterintuitive. How it works is that when we tell someone, and of course you don't want to tell anyone they're untalented or stupid, that would be even worse.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'll make that clear up front. But when we tell somebody that they are smart or they're talented, because we think of those as innate traits, that we think of them as things we don't have control over, what it does to that person, they think they're being praised for something they don't have control over, and then they become subconsciously afraid to take on big challenges or to try really hard to learn things because they're afraid that could be an indication that they're not so smart or talented. And so they've done these experiments with little kids, like 4-year-old kids, where they give a big group of kids a puzzle, an easy puzzle to do. And then they tell half of the kids, oh, you did that puzzle so quickly, you must be really smart. And they prime them with the fixed mindset. And then they tell the other half of the group, oh, you did that puzzle so quickly, you must put a lot of effort into whatever you do. And you must, really put your whole self into whatever you're endeavoring to do. And so they prime them with a growth mindset, praising effort instead of any sort of innate ability. And then they offer all the kids a chance to do another puzzle. And they are given the choice between either doing the same puzzle again, and it was an easy one, or to do a harder puzzle, right? A step up. And the group that was primed with the fixed mindset behaves quite differently from the group primed with the growth mindset. And can you guess, or you might even remember from her book, because I think the study's described in there, but do you remember how the two groups act differently?
It's been years since I read the book.
Okay.
But I think the folks with the harder puzzle actually did better, right? And then the easier kids did with the easy one.
Well, sort of. So they all had done the same easy puzzle to begin with, but the difference was that half of them were told, "Hey, you did great on that puzzle. It must be because you're really smart." So they get the fixed mindset, and the other kids are told, "Hey, you did really well on that puzzle. It must be because you put a lot of effort into what you do." So they were primed with the growth mindset. Then they are all offered the opportunity to either do the easy puzzle again or do a harder puzzle. And what they found was that the kids primed with the fixed mindset, who were told they were smart, chose to simply do the easy puzzle again, because subconsciously they were afraid to do a harder puzzle because that might make them look stupid. And the kids primed with the growth mindset, who'd been praised for their effort, chose to do a harder puzzle. And over again, this is played out in a number of different, many other scientists now have done these kinds of experiments with adults, with professionals, with all sorts of people. When we praise someone for their effort and when we, put them in touch with the fact that it's their effort that has produced those results, they become unafraid of failure. They don't mind looking stupid because they don't think in those terms. What they're thinking of is that when I put effort into something, I learn and I grow. And this is true, and it fits in with brain plasticity because the truth is intelligence is not set. We think of somebody having an IQ like all their lives. But no, the guy who invented the IQ test, Alfred Binet, a French guy, actually invented that test because he felt there was a group of underprivileged kids in France, that's where he was, that were not being educated well. And he argued, listen, if we educate these kids better, we will make them smarter. And so he developed the IQ test specifically to show that with better education, these kids' IQs would rise, as indeed turned out to be the case. Now, for some strange reason, we in America have gotten used to treating IQ scores as though they were permanent, as though they were the mark of a person's ability for their life. And it's just not true.
That's right.
You're going to have to disagree with me now one of these times,
Yeah, maybe.
If we're going to get along.
Funny indeed.
I'll throw one more book out because you asked me for some favorite books. So anyway, Carol Dweck, Mindset, I recommend it to everybody. And then a book called Spark by a guy named Harvard doctor named John Rady. And Spark is all about how physical exercise, we all know its physical benefits, right? But it's also one of the best things you can do for your brain. So, in fact, when they take people who are kind of depressed and they test exercise versus antidepressants, exercise actually usually wins in terms of improving a person's emotional state because it balances those big three neurotransmitters better than any chemical medication can do. Isn't that wonderful?
That is wonderful indeed. Heck, funny enough, that was actually, well, then again, I got to agree again because, yeah, that's true because during one exercise kickboxing session, this random question came to me. It was actually one question I put in my first book, Going North. It was like, yeah, so what one skill would you choose to master next year? What would it be? And that was actually part of the book because that just came to me randomly while I was just randomly hitting things in kickboxing class. So, yeah, it's true. Exercise is good for your brain. It is good for the brain.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that. I love how that idea came to you. Oh, that's so nice. What other ideas have come to you while you're in motion?
Oh, yeah, in motion indeed. When you're in motion, you got to stay in motion, kind of like poetry. Funny enough, it's either in the shower or like near the tail end of a workout, just getting a mood where I feel like writing. And that's happened to me a couple months ago. And I'm doing some writing towards my next book coming out, well, I guess at the time of this recording next month, and it's like, oh, man, this is awesome. Because it's like it just brings some random thoughts from the subconscious mind, especially when you're hearing things all the time. And then it's like it comes out the most random moment, and it can be inopportune if you don't have a pen and a piece of paper around you to track and record those thoughts. So it's one heck of a great thing to not only stay in motion, but also to have something to trap your ideas in.
That's great. That's great advice and a great point. What do you do to be able to write down your thoughts when that inspiration strikes?
Oh, yeah, just keep a small notebook, notepad in the car, along with a couple pens in case one dies, and then always keep my smartphone on me, and it's like, hey, okay, I'll just record a random 90-second talk or whatever, 90-second idea and thought. And I might not even come back to that thing for a good 2 months or 2 years, but it's like at least it's down somewhere and I can go back to it. I mean, I guess, in a way, not only self-intelligence, but self-awareness, just being ready to absorb a good idea when it comes, because when you, especially if you're like, maybe you sleep and you have this good idea, and you be like, I'll just write it down in the morning, and you wake up like, oh, man, what the heck did I do? What happened to that idea? Oh, it went into the fairy world of other ideas, waiting for another human to capture it. They're probably waiting for Jane Ransom to show up. It's like, hey, there's that lady with the ransom notes in the TEDx.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm grabbing that thing. It's mine now.
Hey, it's okay with chocolate. This is awesome.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the subconscious element there, too, because the first chapter in my book is on using your dreams, you know, because so many scientists and artists have made breakthroughs while dreaming. The guy who came up with the table of the elements in chemistry, you know, it came to him in a dream after years of working on it. And other, you know, there are other instances of that. But it's because of exactly what you're talking about. When we're not tending to all those other things that we're typically tending to, it's in that moment of just openness that the idea will come. And I love that you write those down. And I'm so excited. So you have a book coming out in a month, right? Is that what you just said?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Congratulations. I know this interview is about me and my book, but I want to hear about yours. What's it about? What's its title?
Oh, yes, the title of the book is going to be called Stay the Course, and the subtitle is The Elite Performers, 7 Keys to Sustainable Success. And funny enough, one of those keys is gratitude, because the main premise of the book is like the first book, Going North, it's like you'll be inspired, you'll become promoted. Well, it's like you got to keep some oil in that lamp that everyone has. So it's like you got to shine brightly. And funny enough, I believe gratitude was mentioned in your TED Talk, and that's actually one of the 7 keys in the book, and it's just being thankful for everything around you, especially your loved ones while they're still here, because one time I was in a Toastmasters meeting, and we had this portion called Table Topics, and the question was, like, who are 3 people that are responsible for your success today? Go ahead and name them and tell us why. And one of them was my father, of course, and he is one of the greatest folks I've ever had in my life, because I probably wouldn't be here talking with you without him, as well as God and others.
Yeah.
And after that talk, the guy gave me the question, was like, all right, so if he's still alive, go ahead and thank him. I went ahead and thanked him, and then 5 days later, he passed away after me thanking him. So it was like, yeah, so it's a powerful thing to be grateful for those you have in life, because you never know when their time could be up.
Oh my gosh, I just got total goosebumps. Was your dad ill at the time?
Yeah, he was going through dementia and Alzheimer's. He was at the tail end of it, especially with an injury that he suffered probably about 3 months before the whole gratitude session, and it just made everything worse. So yeah, he was going through it, but he was a good guy, because he fought in World War II as a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division.
Wow.
Got 2 Bronze Service Stars, and he fought in the Korean War as well. So he has 12 years of service for the U.S. of A.
Wow. Well, thank you to your dad. And was he able, in spite of his illness, when you shared your gratitude, did he have a moment of clarity enough to take in what you were sharing with him?
I hope he did, to be honest, because he really wasn't fully aware of what was going on, because it's always talk of home and whatnot with folks in that certain stage of illness in life. So so it could have been like a whole hallucination where just a random friend from like his time, like as a bus driver or an Army or paratrooper, where it's him talking with his buddies or whatever. But I figured, hey, I might as well do it now, because I read in the book where it's like, hey, even though they may not be fully aware of what's going on, it's still good to talk and converse with them, because you never know how that could affect them. They may just wake up after sundowning and realize what just happened.
I completely agree. I'm so glad you had that conversation, and I really do trust that at some level he was able to take that in. And even if, worst case scenario, if he wasn't able to process it in this life, I'm going to assume that he took it with him into the next. I think it's beautiful that you did that. I'm so glad you did that. What was it like for you to have done that? You know, I mean, it was a gift from you to him, but how did it leave you feeling?
I guess the way fulfilled, because in a way it's returning the favor. It's like you got parents to bring into the world, so you got to return the favor when they get to that, if they get to that point where they can't really fend for themselves and they may be going through that period where it's like, hey, you come to the world in diapers, and if they got to leave the world in diapers, you got to make sure you try to do your best to take care of them and honor them while they're still here, because they live through stuff, and life is hard, especially now with everything out there. So it's like you just got to appreciate people while they're here, give them the roses while they're here. And I'm pretty sure when folks give you roses, they make sure they're red, right?
Right. I love that. And I'm with you on this whole, the importance of gratitude, and especially now, and expressing gratitude to others is such a rich experience for all involved. Do you have a gratitude practice that you do every day, and does it usually involve, thanking others, or do you also have a private sort of spiritual routine that you use? What do you do to keep your gratitude going?
Oh, yeah, it's usually spiritual in the morning, wake up and give thanks for another day of living. And sometimes I joke around with people, be like, yep, you got to thank God for common sense, too, because it's not so common as well.
That's true. Oh, so true.
Yep, you're so going to be using that one this week, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm taking it all. It's mine now.
I already know I'm going to get a ransom email in my inbox. Like, all right, I got all these ideas from you, and you can have them back when you send me the so-and-so amount of dollars and invite me to speak in front of 5,000 people.
Done. I like the way you phrased that. That'll work for me, yeah. But until then, it's Going North podcast with Jane Ransom. It's mine now.
Well, at least you're laughing and pleasant about it. I mean, at least it's not like full of rants saying, like, give me your podcast, mine. I
know. If you're going to be robbed, at least, have it done nicely. I completely agree.
Well, it's a beautiful thing that you consider yourself one of the wonderful nerds of the world. Any advice you want to give to those out there who are a little nerdy and may want to make something out themselves, out of life, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so much. Well, first of all, being nerdy is a good thing. The nerd is the new cool. Nerdiness is the new cool. Also, just because we were talking about gratitude is one of the most scientifically proven effective things you can do to lift yourself up, and it's absolutely free. So, maybe not time to go into it now, but gratitude turned my life around. And here's the thing. People can practice gratitude in any form whatsoever, right? Like, there's one experiment called the 3 blessings, where they have people just write down 3 things at the end of the day that they're grateful for, anything at all. And they found that boosted those people's moods significantly within only 2 weeks. It also helps improve self-discipline, physical health, all kinds of things. But, Dom, I am too lazy to write my gratitude down. Too lazy.
Yep.
So, yeah. So
me too.
Yeah. So I say mine out loud, and mine is kind of a form of prayer as well, And so that works for me. And so the point is, and somebody could do it in the shower. You can do it while you're walking. There's many ways to do it. The only thing is that I would say, don't just do it silently in your own head unless you're really in a prayer process where you're kind of really connected, right? But the reason it's good to sometimes speak it or write it or dance to it, sing it, whatever you want to do, is that it gets more parts of the brain involved. And so it really works to tap into that brain plasticity and lay down those neural maps. So the one thing I would just, say with your listeners is practice gratitude. Stay in that good space. Like just hearing you talk about your dad is so beautiful to me, the appreciation there. And I think for your listeners too, hearing that lifts them up. So know that when you practice gratitude, you're not only lifting yourself, but you're lifting other people up as well. And not just the people you're expressing gratitude to, but anybody who gets to hear about it is uplifted. Gratitude is contagious. And as you mentioned today, we need a lot more of it, right? We need plenty of that good stuff. So that's what I'll say.
Woohoo! Beautiful indeed. Beautiful indeed. Gratitude, baby. That's right. Gratitude. Be thankful for everything. That's right. Even put on a panda suit and be grateful. That's right.
Well, if we can have the red shoes with the pantsuit, that'd be okay.
There we go. A panda with red shoes. There we go.
Oh, I thought you said pantsuit, but I really prefer the panda with the red shoes. Even better. That's my new logo, is a panda with red shoes. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, there's a saying, folks having too much fun. I don't believe them.
They're missing out. So what's one thing that you have for your listeners to take with them?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Is to take with them is that you can do it. When someone says 500 words a minute, just translate it as you can do it.
Nice. Sweet. I like it.
Well, all righty, not to abduct any more of your time, it's the question I like to ask every guest, and that is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again with all of your knowledge and experience in your side of your brain kept, and you're in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would tell myself that there's no greater joy in life than contributing to the greater good. Because I don't think I realized that when I was young. I was struggling and sometimes unhappy and sometimes driven by ego. And it was only when I became a little bit more mature, I feel like I'm a late bloomer in that sense, that I realized aiming for the greater good, contributing to something bigger than me, is really the most nourishing thing I can do for myself, and it brings me the greatest joy. And that's, I do sometimes think, gosh, I wish I could go back and wake my younger self up to that, because I would have contributed more to the world and I would have had a better time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, all sorts of grand contributions to the world. The good news is you're making it today.
Yeah, never too late. I mean, right, it's never, never, never too late. We're always as old as or as young as we are, but that would be mine for right now. Have you shared yours on the show? I've heard other people's.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Shared it many a time before. Encoded messages, sacred messages. It's all encrypted. That's right, it's encrypted. It's encrypted through puns.
We got to play the recording backwards probably, right?
That's right. And then when you play it backwards, it says, buy self-intelligence, buy 500 copies now. But I got to pay my bills. Jane's middle name today is Bill. You're paying her to buy 500 bucks.
Nicely done. nicely done. Thank you.
Yeah, you're into hypnosis, so you'll probably love that one.
Totally, yeah. I am into hypnosis. That is true.
Just a disclaimer, no, she didn't hypnotize me before this podcast. Don't worry.
That you know of.
Touche. Touche. That's right, she's getting a foot massage as we speak. Don't worry. Stop. Yep, that's a great visual for you. Chocolate hands give me a foot massage. Oh, I'm in heaven. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir. That's right.
And then a pair of ruby red slippers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Forget glass slippers. It's all about ruby red. That's right. Those are the real apple bottoms right there.
There you go.
Woo! Well, all righty. For those who want to keep in contact with you and all of your magical, joyful Jane goodness, how do we keep in touch with you?
Let's see. Probably the easiest way is my website, which is Jane Ransom. Obviously, there's no E on the end. It is spelled like kidnap money. Jane Ransom, all one word, .com. Oh, and on the book page where they can find out about the book, but also there's a free self-hypnosis course there that's really pretty good, if I do say so myself, and it's free.
Oh, yeah, free like a free bird, a fabulous free bird.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you have it, folks. Go on ahead and pick up a random set of copies of Self-Intelligence. Yours truly is definitely going to snag a random copy and find Jane and have her autograph it for me in red, so that way she knows she has a new fan, baby, a new fan. And not just the one that blows on you during the summer either.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey there, buddy. Looks like you made it to the end of this episode. Since you made it to the end of this episode, do both of us a favor and stop being greedy. Stop it right now and share this episode with your friends and your fellow podcast lovers, especially those who have book clubs and want to listen to the authors who write some amazing books. Be sure to check out the rest of the backlog too while you're at it and share all those too. And in order to make the rest of your week the best of your week, remember to advance others, to advance yourself.